Hello, everyone, and many thanks for your attention, for joining this stream. Of course, many thanks to all the members of our community who will join later on and or will watch video after live stream. I will publish short clips from this live stream also on both platforms, on YouTube and Rumble, for those members of community who might have no time to watch entire video. Well, today is 28th of May. Now it's 11 o'clock in the morning, Moscow time, and I have prepared quite a number of news on some major developments, and hopefully you will find it informative and useful. And well, before I start, I will just say that during the previous 24 hours, I did not receive no commentary or the question through any of their support platforms, PayPal, Boosty, Patreon, others, to highlight during the stream. So therefore, if there will be any questions or the comments during the stream on support platforms, I will react on it after news segment. Otherwise, I will end stream after news. And well, without further delay, let's start this update. And first of all, of course, I have to report about yet another statement of U.S. President Donald Trump, which was full of hatred towards Russia, full of threats. And if anyone had any doubts that, well, Trump was just playing the games while talking about the escalation with Moscow and basically gaining some time for globalists, Western ruling class, then I guess after these statements, no one will have any doubts. U.S. is in war with Russia, full stop. That's it, man. Right? And well, U.S. President Donald Trump has suggested that his Russian counterpart, Vladimir Putin, is playing with the fire without elaborating on what exactly he means. In recent days, Trump has increasingly criticized the Kremlin over what he perceives as a lack of progress in the peace negotiations between Moscow and Kiev. Who the hell is Trump? First of all, let's start from here. Who is this freaking animal, man, to say anything to Moscow or to anyone from Russia? This freaking bloody clown, man. Last week, Trump and Putin held a phone conversation, which was a mistake. Russian president should not waste time to talk to this nobody, during which they discussed their prospects of a peaceful resolution to the Ukrainian conflict. Both leaders characterized the call as productive. Yeah, of course. And you know what? Let me show you a post of Trump. And let's read it. He posted this crap on his True Social network. Let's go through it. What Vladimir Putin does not realize is that if it were not for me, lots of really bad things would have already happened to Russia. Threat, and I mean really bad. He is playing with fire. That's the statement from Trump, by the way. And whichever you take a look at this, it's a threat, right? It's clearly a threat against Russia, against Russian people, against Russian president personally. Also, I will argue, and I'm quite sure, by the way, Trump and also most likely Keir Starmer, President of US and Prime Minister of UK, were briefed about a recent attempt to assassinate Russian president while he was visiting Kursk region, right? 100%. And well, after these statements, one may argue, you know, what he meant, in which direction situation gonna go from now on, and you know, I can share at least a few takes on that. I think, as I predicted many times before, we are already in the next phase of escalation, which is already happening, and I think situation gonna further deteriorate. And I think we should keep in mind that Chancellor of Germany just like a couple of days ago stated that all the restrictions on the transfer of long-range weapons to Kiev regime and use of these long-range weapons have been lifted by US, Germany, UK, and France. And many people start straight away talking about Taurus missiles, that the statement of Merz means that either Taurus missiles, German long-range cruise missiles, already being delivered to Kiev controlled territory or will be delivered soon. But many people miss their point because Kiev regime already has weapon systems that can strike deep into Russian territory from 500 to 800 kilometers, maybe even deeper than that, potentially. And what I mean is that, NATO countries already provided Kiev regime with their F-16 fighter jets, Mirage fighter jets. Kiev regime still has several Su-27s and the MiG-29s. Maybe even Su-24s are left. And we all know that France and the UK for a long time now are transferring to Kiev controlled territory Storm Shadow and Scalp PG cruise missiles that have range about 300 kilometers. And technically speaking, it is quite possible, and I think Russian side should be ready for such a development, that NATO countries might conduct long-range deep strike into Russian territory with these missiles that will be launched from the planes, F-16s, Su-27s, MiG-29s, Mirage 2000s, while these planes will try to penetrate Russian airspace on a low altitude so that at least majority of them would not be seen by radars. And they might launch these missiles some, 300 kilometers away from Russian capital, and they can actually conduct a massive strike with missiles on Moscow, right? So that's the one possibility that things may develop. Long-range, large-scale missile strike on Russian capital, because seems like NATO countries are very keen to harm Moscow, because lately we all seeing significant increase of strikes on Moscow. And I have news on that today also. And that's one scenario, by the way. I expect a large-scale escalation. Something big is about to happen that will change calculus of everyone, right? And another scenario that I expect will be, deployed or implemented is that, most likely Western ruling class will revive through its propaganda outlets topic of transformation of Kiev regime into a nuclear armed regime. So soon, in a couple of days' time or a couple of weeks' time, we should expect another wave of articles after articles after articles on this topic that, because West is struggling with the weapon deliveries and so on, Kiev regime has enough expertise and materials to build atomic bombs. So I expect this scenario to be implemented also, of transformation of Kiev regime into a nuclear regime. And at that point, I guess no matter how much Russian President Vladimir Putin wants to exercise restraint, he will just have no option but to take action, because millions, tens of millions of Russian citizens, lives of Russian citizens will be at risk. So something big is about to happen for sure. And therefore, I think Moscow should stop play longer these games that NATO is exercising right now, and should take much more stronger stance, because you cannot talk to these creatures, man. You just cannot. It makes no sense whatsoever. I mean, you tell me, dear friends, what is your take? Would you have any talks with the representatives of these hostile states? We can call them globalists, Western ruling class, whatever, neocons, and so on. But would you have meaningful talks with them? Would you trust anything? that comes out from Washington, London, Berlin, Paris, or other Western countries that are controlled by this, Western ruling class or whomever. Most likely you would not. And Moscow should not, right? And of course, these statements of Trump did not fly well worldwide, actually, and neither in Russia. And the former Russian president, Dmitry Medvedev, and current deputy chairman of the Security Council, responded on Trump's statements that Russia is playing with fire, or the Putin. So deputy chairman of the Russian Security Council, Dmitry Medvedev, commented on the Telegram channel on their statement by the US President Donald Trump that Moscow is playing with fire. We have a quote from Medvedev here. As for Trump's words about Russian President Vladimir Putin playing with fire and really bad things happening to Russia, I only know one really bad thing: World War III. I hope Trump understands this, he wrote. And well, clear enough message from Moscow, but you know what? At this point, no one is taking seriously these messages from Moscow, in the West for sure, right? And that's why I'm saying it is really, I understand that Moscow is trying to demonstrate to whole world that it is all about de-escalation and was always open to resolve this crisis. Root causes, but to do so, root causes should be addressed, right? But clearly diplomacy has its own time, and some other steps has its own time. And I think now it's not time for diplomacy. Time for diplomacy has run out, and Moscow should take decisive actions against Russian enemies until it's not too late. Because, as I said, already lives of tens of millions of Russian citizens can be in danger there, and very soon. Let's see how the situation develops, but I am definitely not optimistic. So much so that, second time since the beginning of a special military operation, I had to talk to my family, my wife, about the possibility that soon new wave of mobilization maybe will happen, and we have to make sure that all the documents, everything, all papers are in the right order, so that if I am mobilized and then KA8, killed in action, there would be no issues with whatever support country can provide to my family. In that case, it's important stuff, by the way. First time I had to talk about these topics with their family when mobilization was partial mobilization was declared a couple of years ago, and I think now situation is about to escalate so much so that maybe Moscow will have no option but to resort to mobilization. And we all should be ready, by the way. All Russian citizens, we have not just rights but obligations too. And when it comes to me personally, I'm here, and we'll do whatever I can to be useful for country to defeat our enemies, right? Meanwhile, Trump's special envoy, Kat Kellogg, another neocon, by the way, another neocon, dirty animal, really. And I'm not apologizing, by the way, for using this extreme language in regards to this despicable elements like Trump, Kellogg, and the rest of the garbage that is in charge of collective West, at least formally. I have no respect for these animals, man, and will never have any respect for them. And if you don't like it, by the way, you can unsubscribe and do whatever you fit necessary. But this creature, Kellogg, commented on Medvedev's reaction on Trump's threats. Let's go through this information here. U.S. presidential envoy for Ukraine, Kat Kellogg, has accused former Russian President Dmitry Medvedev of warmongering. I mean, can you imagine, man, how despicable these dirty animals are? that they are talking about warmongering of other people. I mean, it's, I don't know, man. It's just so wrong and in so many levels that it's hard to even comment on this, right? Blin. And we have a quote here. Stoking fears of World War III is an unfortunate, reckless comment by Medvedev and the unfitting of world power. Kellogg wrote on X on Wednesday. He added, President Trump is working to stop this war and end the killing. Really? And that's why US is transferring weapons to Kyiv regime. That's why US leadership just a couple of days ago tried to kill Russian president. And don't tell me that US intelligence didn't knew about that attack on the Russian president's helicopter. Of course they knew. So, I mean, if anybody takes seriously anything from these animals, by the way, Trump, Kellogg, Stammer, Macron, and Merz, and the rest of their human scum, then I can only feel sorry for those people, man. These are the disgrace of humanity, these elements that formally are in charge of the West. It is what it is. And Kellogg, this scum, also went to say that the US is awaiting Russia's submission of a memorandum outlined its terms for a ceasefire. I mean, unbelievable, man. Who tell these freaking idiots that they really are in a position to demand from Russia anything whatsoever, right? I was saying from the beginning, by the way, that it is a huge mistake on part of Russian side, Russian media, for example, state-run media, by the way, when they were portraying US as a sort of a mediator, because it was a shameful step, because how US can be mediator in its own proxy war against Russia? I mean, how that is even possible, right? But yet again, man, that's where we are. That Kellogg now is emboldened so much so, I don't know why, but that he is demanding from Russia submission of the memorandum. Last time I checked, it was direct negotiations between Moscow and Kyiv, right? So why should Moscow submit anything to Washington? I mean, what's going on, dear friends? I am losing understanding of this situation, man. I don't know. I hope you have better reading of the picture, and please share your take. What's going on? But this is just too bad, man. This is insulting, actually, to Russia, that some freaking uneducated, dirty animal is demanding from Russia something to be submitted. Man, what the hell, man? What is wrong with this world? Vzгляд newspaper is meanwhile reporting that US already received Ukrainian terms for peace deal on the conflict. Okay, Ukraine is their proxy, right? Kyiv regime is their proxy, and therefore they can do with each other whatever they want. But Russia don't have to do nothing. Russia is not obligated to US by any means, right? And these idiots should choose their language before it's not too late in Washington, right? They should be very careful with their freaking language, these animals, man. And another one, by the way. I mean, what a day, isn't it? I mean, RT is reporting here that a US senator pushes mega tariffs on Russia's partners. So US Senator Lindsey Graham, well, another scum of humanity, has claimed that his plan to hit Russia's trade partners with 500% tariffs would help President Donald Trump push Moscow towards the peace deal with Ukraine. And, according to reports, he already has majority support in the Senate, and most likely his bill will pass Congress also. And you know what? Let them do this. Let them do this. I think it is absolutely necessary. Rest of the world, to say finally that enough is enough, and to start isolating collective West in the practical terms. And if this bill is adopted, that will actually help this world to isolate this extremely inadequate collective West countries' leaderships, right? because 500% tariffs on China, that will kill US economy, by the way. That will just simply kill US economy. That's what's going to be, right? 500% tariffs on India. Okay, just do it, try it. 500% on tariffs on other allies of Russia. Well, I'm telling you, dear friends, in my personal opinion, if this bill will pass, that will help tremendously this world to finally take some real steps, concrete steps, to isolate collective West, which is run by morons, right? Mass murderers and genocidal maniacs. That's the elements that are in charge of collective West. And I think vast majority of informed people in this world will agree with me. 100%. I have no doubts about that. So, I mean, here in Russia, reaction on this report will be exactly as I just said. Bring it on. Just bring it on, Let's go all the way. And then you will find out. Meanwhile, TASS news agency is reporting that a new round of talks between Russia and Ukraine to be announced soon. Okay, let's go through some details here. Moscow will insist that Kyiv repeal all discriminatory laws in Ukraine in a new round of direct talks, which will be announced soon. This was stated by Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov at the international meeting of high-level representatives in charge of security issues. Lavrov recalled that direct negotiations on all issues of conflict settlements in Ukraine were resumed in Istanbul on May 16. At these negotiations on May 16 in Istanbul, and this is quote, when they resumed, we insisted on the abolition of all these discriminatory laws and will continue to do so in the next round of direct negotiations, which will be announced in a very near future, the foreign minister said. And well, it seems like Lavrov is quite optimistic. He thinks next round of negotiations is going to take place. I would not be that optimistic because, dear friends, just last night, earlier of this morning, Russian air defense systems intercepted some 300 drones, about 300 drones that were launched by Kyiv regime with assistance of NATO to strike deep into Russian territory and kill as many civilians, as many people as they possibly can. Does it looks like, and by the way, this is a trend for how long now, right? This is daily occurrence. And does it demonstrates that either collective West countries or their proxy in Kyiv really intend to negotiate with Russia in good faith? I mean, come on, man. We all are grown-up people, right? So I don't know. I mean, Lavrov is a heavyweight diplomat, and he is going to be a diplomat always, right? And he is using diplomatic language. He demonstrates some optimism in these statements, but let's be real. There might be no more talks, direct talks between Moscow and Kyiv until unconditional capitulation of Kyiv regime and their Western masters. Let's see. But right now, I see no reason why should Moscow talk to anybody from the West, and of course to anybody from Western proxies in Kyiv. There is no point in that, right? Rest of the world is in Russia's support anyways, right? Rest of the world, by the way, is waiting this collective West, this Western ruling class, this warmongering genocidal maniacs to be defeated, right? And this will happen, and therefore, I don't think Moscow needs to demonstrate its goodwill anymore to anybody. I mean, world is already has decided where it stands, right? There is a collective West on one side and the rest of the world on another side. It is what it is, and it's gonna stay this way potentially for decades to come, right? And well, TASS news agency is also reporting that President of Russian Federation addressed today this 13th International Meeting of High Representatives responsible for security issues that is taking place here in Moscow, I believe. And let's go through this news. The new security architecture must be equal and indivisible, whatever that means, man. I don't know what that word is. All states must receive guarantees of their security, but not at the expense of others. This was stated by Russian President Vladimir Putin in an address to this gathering that is taking place here in Moscow. More than 100 delegations worldwide are here from world, by the way, with the exception of Collective West. Collective West is already separated from rest of the world, right? And maybe few people from Collective West countries are participating in this meeting, but not the official delegations from the Collective West countries. So West is already isolated, by the way, and let's continue on this path, right? We all understand the globalists and their allies, being neocons or Zionists or whatever, they are existential threat for humanity, and we should isolate them. It is what it is. It's absolutely necessary if humanity wants to survive, right? At least another century. So therefore, this direction should be continued, and the West is already isolated. In many ways, more needs to be done, right? We have another quote from President. As for Russia, our approaches remain fundamental and unchanged. I have said more than once, and I will repeat, we are convinced that the new security architecture must be equal. That is, all states must receive firm guarantees of their own security, but not at the expense of their security and interests of other countries. Said the Russian president. Okay, I mean, understandable statement. He said that before too, and in this regard, stand of Russian leadership, stand of Russia has not changed, and I guess there is some issues with the browser again. But anyways, dear friends, before I continue, let me remind you that this media project, independent media project from Russia, is completely subscriber funded. And if you like my work, if you like my channel, if you think I'm doing something positive and useful, then please consider to support so that I'll be able to maintain this project and continue this work. If you want to, you can support through several means. You can donate through PayPal platform or Boosty platforms. You can donate with the cryptocurrency, or you can subscribe to my Patreon page. Link is under this video in the description box and in the pinned comment. And on Patreon, by the way, and also on page on Boosty, I have quite a lot of extra content that is only published there. So that might be a good bonus for your support. That's being said, let's continue. And well, RIA Novosti is reporting that since the beginning of the last night, our defense forces have shot down 33 drones flying towards Moscow. This is a report from about 2 hours ago. Maybe more drones have been shut down by now. Also, overall, by the way, for 8:30 this morning, according to Russian Defense Ministry, 296 Ukrainian drones were intercepted on mainly on the central parts of European part of Russia, in central regions of European part of Russia, and drones were intercepted over the 13 regions, I believe. I can give you some specifics. So drones, so formerly Ukrainian drones, but in reality NATO drones, were intercepted over the two Latvia, Smolensk, Ryazan, Oryol, Kursk, Kaluga, Ivanovo, Voronezh, Vladimir, Belgorod, Bryansk regions, and Moscow region. So, I mean, you tell me, dear friends, if this does looks like either US or UK or France or Germany or their proxy Kyiv regime is really about de-escalating anything. No. And when Russia will retaliate, and of course Russia will retaliate, right? Then this dirty bitch Trump gonna come out and start whining again that, you know what, Russia is striking on Kyiv controlled territory for no reason. I mean, that's with whom we are dealing, man. These disgusting freaking animals, man, that are in charge of collective West. You know, I have no nerves to be, you know, any more polite towards those creatures, man. No. F them all. Kommersant newspaper, meanwhile, is reporting that last week, when that Trump, that psycho, went to whine about Russian retaliatory strikes, Kyiv regime, with assistance of NATO, launched more than 2,300 drones to strike deep into Russian territory. More than 1,400 drones were intercepted outside of special military operation zone. So just look at the numbers, by the way. More than 2,300 drones were launched to strike deep into Russia, and 1,400 drones did manage to cross entire zone of special military operation and reach deep into Russian territory where they're being shut down, right? And Trump, despite this, by the way, and of course he is briefed on that. I do not believe that Trump is really that dumb. He is acting maybe dumb, but I mean, if he's that idiot, I mean, he would not become, he would not be chosen by whomever to represent their interests in the White House, right? So he's acting idiot maybe, but he is not that dumb for sure. And he was most likely, 100%, by the way, not most likely, but 100% briefed that there was a large-scale drone assaults on Russia that was conducted, including with the assistance of U.S. Secret Services and satellite intelligence of U.S. And still he went to say that Russia is striking Kyiv-controlled territory for no reason. I mean, what can you tell, by the way? What can you say when this is happening? Really, you can just ignore those freaking creatures and that's it, man. Don't take them seriously. Just ignore them. That's the way to go. Meanwhile, TASS news agency is reporting that Russian armed forces liberated old Nikolayka or Staraya Nikolayka settlement in DPR. I reported about progress of the Russian armed forces in this direction. This is eastern flank or northern eastern flank of Pokrovsk-Mirnograd agglomeration, and this is Novaya Nikolayevka. And Russian armed forces, by the way, basically are about to finalize clearing operation in entire this part here. And it's not just Staraya Nikolayevka, but also Zelenaye Polye, Kalinovo settlement, and Zarya settlement, Romanovka settlement that were liberated by Russian forces. It is unknown yet how many troops the regime lost in this cauldron, but number is in hundreds at least, or maybe even in thousands during this quite rapid Russian advance in this area. The regime's defense lines collapsed literally in hours there. And also reports are coming in that Russian armed forces established control over the Popov Yar and also Poltavka settlement. This information not yet confirmed by Russian Defense Ministry, but I guess either today, late in the afternoon, or maybe tomorrow, Russian Defense Ministry probably will confirm this progress of the Russian armed forces also. Let's continue, dear friends. And also interesting news that Russian Navy Navy began its exercises in the Baltic Sea area, where potentially Russia and militaries of Russia and NATO countries might clash big time, and in relatively short time. Risk is very high due to irresponsible activity of the NATO states in this area. So Russian ships supported by aircraft have begun exercises in the Baltic Sea. The Baltic Fleet Press Service reported as a part of maintaining favorable operational regime, practicing their actions of the fleet's forces to defend their bases in the Baltic Sea. And a planned exercises of Baltic Fleet forces is being conducted with the involvement of part of their Northern Fleet forces with the support of their aviation and aerospace forces, the Moscow and Leningrad military districts. Their press release said, and it is also important that Northern Fleet is also participating in these drills. Obviously, Russian Baltic and Northern Sea fleets they are on the edge. By the way, now they're gonna play a crucial role in protecting shipping lines, in protecting merchant vessels, even convoys of the merchant vessels that will go in and out of Russian ports on Baltics. So therefore, it is extremely important that navies are preparing to take action against whomever will try to attack Russian interests. Also interesting news that new batch of Russian Su-30 SM-2 fighter jets has arrived in Belarus. It's a part of expanding military technical cooperation between two allies, Russia and Belarus. Good news, by the way. Good news. Strengthening of military capabilities of Belarus is definitely good news for Belarusian and Russian people. Also, TASS news agency is reporting that Ukrainian armed forces complain that their Patriot has a hard time fighting, intercepting basically Russian Iskander missiles. Well, a number of Western media outlets went to complain last several days that these Western air defense systems, including Patriot, US-made Patriot, are basically unable to deal with the Russian Iskander missile systems that are modernized and are capable of changing trajectory. So they are not really ballistic missiles. I mean, theoretically, they still are ballistic, but during the approach, missiles are changing the trajectory. So for air defense systems, it is becoming difficult to predict potential location of the missile in 10, 20, 30, 50 seconds to intercept it, right? Which is yet again good news for Russian and Russian allies that have Iskander missile systems in their inventory. But well, collective Western ruling class, NATO continues, meanwhile, to do whatever they can to prolong this proxy war against Russia. And I reported on my Telegram and Twitter X page this news also yesterday that Sweden will allocate funds, additional funds, for strikes on Russia. The Swedish government has decided to finance Ukrainian long-range strike weapons, missiles and drones. This was reported by Swedish embassy in Ukraine. The embassy clarified that the funding for deep strike is included in a new military aid package totaling 441 million euros. And this is, dear friends, answer to the questions that I see in the comment sections quite often, that, how come the Kyiv regime is still able to produce these hundreds and thousands of drones? And point is, dear friends, that Kyiv regime is not producing that many drones. They do produce some number of drones, but a majority of drones being shipped basically to Kyiv regime, transferred to Kyiv regime by NATO member states. And it's a couple of dozens of these states, right? Currently, with the exception of Hungary and Slovakia, all other NATO member states are engaged directly in this proxy war against Russia, and they are not even hiding this, right? I mean, take a look at this news. Swedish embassy is not even hiding that they are financing these long-range strikes deep into Russia with the drones, missiles, and so on. They are allocating money for that. They and many other NATO countries are helping with whatever they can to harm Russia and kill as many Russians as they possibly can. That's their mindset, by the way. That's what they do, right? So these drones are coming from NATO. It's NATO drones. It's not Kyiv regime's drones, right? And nothing to be said about flight path of these drones and targeting data that is provided 100%, not for 80% or 70 or 90, it's 100%. US and European NATO member states. This targeting data is coming from them because Kiev regime itself has no capabilities of such a kind. We all know this, isn't it? They will come that these countries, these NATO countries will regret big time for their criminal activity against Russia. And I guess many of us will be around to see that. RT is also reporting that EU meanwhile adopts 150 billion euro defense debt plan. So the Council of European Union has formally endorsed the plan to fund military build-up efforts across their bloc through 150 billion euros or 170 billion dollars borrowing mechanism. Their initiative came after Washington announced it would ramp down its involvement in Europe's defense. US not gonna do nothing. US gonna be engaged with NATO as usual. US gonna be engaged in this proxy war against Russia until unconditional surrender of the globalist Western ruling class will be achieved, and it will be achieved for sure. But obviously, European bureaucracy, these puppets of globalists, are using this, topic of Russia as a reasoning to basically allocate more and more taxpayers' money for military-industrial complex for their own selves, right? Because they are receiving some bonuses for that, isn't it? And this will continue. This will continue. Majority of people in European countries are in deep sleep, and they would not wake up until it's too late. I mean, it is sad to say, but I really believe vast majority of societies in collectivist countries will either never wake up or will wake up only when it's just too late. It is what it is. RT is also reporting that EU state calls for a Schengen ban on Russians. And you guess which country is that, by the way? When it comes to some extreme measures, I don't know. These Baltic Chihuahua states are definitely leading the charge. Although, of course, leadership of other NATO countries are also full of hatred towards Russia and the Russians. But these Baltic states are something, extraordinary. So Latvian Foreign Minister Baiba Braze has called on EU member states to stop issuing Schengen tourist visas to Russian citizens, claiming they pose a threat to their bloc's internal security. And you know what? Just do it. Do it. Yet another initiative from hostile states that can actually benefit Russia. Russian tourists should, move around Russia more often and spend money here, and that will support local tourist industry. Nothing to do in Europe, by the way. If there is no emergency situation, sometimes there are some medical situation, and in some cases, best experts, best medics are in Russia. In other cases, maybe top experts might be in some European country, or I don't know, in US or Australia maybe. So if there is an emergency, okay, one can understand that it is necessary to move to that country because life is precious, right? But when it comes to tourist trips, come on, man. Why you are moving to hostile nations, hostile countries, and spending money there to support what? Further Russophobia? Why Russian citizens even considering to go to Europe nowadays? By the way, I have nothing against Europe in general, right? But I have everything against the current leadership of Europe, right? They are enemies of ours. So therefore, I truly don't understand what the hell is wrong with those people that are going in European states and they're spending money there quite a lot of money, by the way. As we all know, Russian tourists are quite generous ones, right? And many countries hope to attract Russian tourists for that, because they spend like there is no tomorrow. But yet again, why euro, for God's sake? Why collective West? If it's not emergency situation, just leave it, though. Leave it. Travel around Russia. There's so much to see, by the way. So much to see here. So I mean, I hope this initiative will also go through, and they will introduce a ban on visas for Russians. We don't need to travel into collective West countries whatsoever. And West is clearly moving towards binding up Iron Curtain again, isn't it? It's a West, it's not Russia. It's all Western initiatives. And you know what? Just do it. It might benefit Russia, actually, in the long run. What else do I have bookmarked for today's live stream? TASS News Agency is reporting that Iranian Security Council chief meets with Kremlin aide Patrushev in Moscow. Secretary of the Iranian Supreme National Security Council, Ali Akbar Ahmadian, met with the Russian presidential aide and the chairman of the Russian Maritime Board, Nikolay Patrushev, in Moscow to discuss their implementation of bilateral agreements. And the Iranian embassy in Moscow stated during his visit to Moscow, Secretary of the Iranian Supreme National Security Council, Ali Akbar Ahmadian, met with the Russian presidential aide, Nikolay Patrushev, and discussed the developments of bilateral relations under the Treaty of Comprehensive Strategic Partnership between the two countries. The embassy wrote on its Telegram channel, adding that their sides also discussed the implementation of the key bilateral agreements in a number of areas. And this is great news, dear friends. I hope cooperation between Russia and Iran will further strengthen, and I hope Russia will provide Iran, strategical partner of the Russian Federation, with all the necessary intelligence, weapons, and whatever else is needed to make sure that if Iran is attacked by US or by any other country, Iran's enemies will have colossal losses. I think it's only fair, right? If Russia will revenge on US, on anywhere on this planet, for all the harm that US did to Russian citizens. And therefore, I really hope Russia will do whatever is necessary to make sure that Iran is in a strong enough position to basically eliminate whomever, as many enemy forces as possible when and if Iran is attacked. By whichever country, US, Israel, European states, I don't give a damn, man. Iran is a strategical partner of Russian Federation and should be supported by Russia all the way. That's it, man. And I guess a number of other countries also will support Iran in an upcoming, as far as I understand, war between Iran and the US and US allies. RIA Novosti, meanwhile, is reporting that Russia and Turkey agreed to prevent escalation in Libya. So Russia and Turkey have agreed to use their influence to prevent an escalation in Libya, said Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov. We agreed to use our influence on Libyan sides in order to prevent a new escalation, which threatens to lead to a resumption of hostilities, Lavrov said, following talks with his Turkish counterpart Fidan, who was here in Moscow day before yesterday, maybe even yesterday. Maybe he's still here, by the way, I don't know. But one may ask, where is the Libya and where is the Russia and Turkey? What they can do to prevent hostilities and escalation there? Well, point is that Libya is divided, isn't it, on several parts. Main parts of Libya are controlled by Tripoli government and also Benghazi government. And these two groups are, hostile to each other. And Russia is supporting Benghazi government and Turkey is supporting Tripoli government. So that's how Russia and Turkey can actually influence and play a positive role in terms of de-escalation in Libya. Everything is interconnected, isn't it, in this world? Almost everything. Meanwhile, interesting news that US confirms the presence of 500 of its military personnel in Taiwan. Experts are saying that this is China's red line that been pushed and significantly. I reported about this on my Telegram and Twitter X page yesterday, and this is a big deal for sure. This is a big deal. Neocons in US still are not realizing that era of US dominance is finished, and soon US will finish itself. They will. I mean, US is doomed, by the way. US and Europe, I mean, they are doomed, right? Only chance US had for to survive is to de-escalate with Moscow. I mean, literally, that was the only chance. And Trump, current administration of US, they blew up this chance. So therefore, US is going down, by the way, with Europe. Give it to 20, 30 years, and most likely there will be no more US, and European part of the Eurasian continent gonna be extremely loosely relevant or completely irrelevant area of the continent. It is just inevitable, right? And when it comes to Taiwan itself, well, it's a China, right? Taiwan is a China. And when time is right, Chinese people that are living in mainland China and in Taiwan will reconcile. It's absolutely inevitable, and no one can stop this process. Not US neocons, not the globalists, no one can stop this process. It is what it is. And longer US political class will continue to ignore objective reality, that they are in no position to, act tough in this world, and more and more painful decline of US will be, right, for US citizens, first of all. Citizens that they are not yet really realizing depth of the shit that US is in right now. It is what it is. RT is reporting that India, meanwhile, clears the way for its own fifth generation fighter jet. Great news, by the way. How warm attitude I have towards India. I think India is a major strategical partner of Russia and should maintain as such and treated as such forever. So Indian Defense Minister Rajnath Singh has approved their execution model for the developing an advanced medium combat aircraft with an investment of 175 million. Their aeronautical development agency will spearhead their program through industry partnerships, according to government statement on Tuesday. And this is great news, by the way. Great news. India already building its own domestically built plane, domestically developed plane, Tejas, right? And is well capable. I believe India is well capable to produce fifth generation fighter jets. And I'm quite sure if there is any need in assistance from Russian side, this assistance will be provided. I have no doubts about that. So, good luck to India in this in development of this project. They're gonna succeed 100%. No doubts about that. And I'm gonna end this live stream with this news that German economy threatened by historic downturn. So Germany breaks its own economic failure record. Germany's economy is collapsing further, according to a major survey by the German Chamber of the Industry and Commerce, DIHK, based on over 23,000 companies. 2025 is set to be the third straight year of economic contraction for Germany. This would be an all-time low since the creation of the modern German state. And what we can say about it, by the way, our community should not be surprised at all. I'm reporting about economical downfall of European countries, including Germany, for quite a while now. And it will just accelerate. This process will just accelerate. Germany, surprisingly, still in a surplus when it comes to trade. They have some 200, 250 billion surplus, but the industrialization of this country is accelerating. Economy is shrinking, and therefore, as I said, by the way, and if Germany is struggling, by the way, that goes for mainly all the other countries, right? Because it's a leading economy in Europe. And I have reasons to say, dear friends, that give it another 20, 30 years, and European part of Eurasian continent is going to be, either completely irrelevant or very loosely relevant territory, right? And all this due to crazy actions of the globalists, Western ruling class, and their so-called elites in the West, including in Germany. And if people in European countries prefer to be in a deep sleep, then okay. I mean, it's only people that can stop, theoretically speaking, this process if they would wake up, but they're not going to do this. I'm talking about majority. I mean, there is a minority in US, minority of well-informed people in US and in Europe that understood how dangerous all these processes are, but they have no influence on the policies in their countries, right? And the majority, this sleeping majority, will either never wake up, as I already said, or will wake up only when it's just too late. It is what it is, and well, I'm gonna end this live stream on that. And well, how long is this update? Almost an hour, dear friends. Hopefully, you find this episode informative and interesting. I was a bit emotional, maybe, but it is what it is, man. I never said that I'm gonna act, right? I'm not an actor. All I promise is to be real, always, right? And that's how it is. And well, hopefully, news segment was informative enough. And if so, please click that like button and not just in the chat and comment something, not just in the chat, but also in the comment section, by the way. That might help to deal with the algorithm. And if you come across of short videos of mine that I'm making from these live streams, if you have time, please like those videos also, and maybe you can leave some commentary. That would be helpful also. So okay, this is it for now. Thank you all for your attention. Have a wonderful day, and take care. Bye for now.